There are people who move through life carrying a quiet kind of exhaustion. Not the exhaustion that comes from too much work, but the exhaustion that comes from beginning again, and again, and again. If that's you, if you're listening to this because you're tired of rebuilding, tired of trying, tired of feeling like you're constantly back at square one, I want you to know something important. You are not alone, and there is nothing wrong with you. Feeling like you're always starting over does something to a person. It makes you question your choices, your direction, your timing, and sometimes even your worth. It makes you compare yourself to people who seem to move in straight lines while your path feels like a loop, a repeating cycle of progress, setback, reset. But here's the truth people rarely say out loud. A lot of growth doesn't look like a straight line. It looks like circling back to the same lesson with a slightly stronger heart. It looks like returning to an old challenge with new awareness. It looks like revisiting places you thought you'd outgrown, not because you failed, but because you're finally ready to understand them differently. Starting over is not a sign of weakness. It is one of the clearest signs that you haven't given up. You're trying, you're learning, you're adapting. You're finding your way, even when the map keeps changing. And that perseverance, that willingness to begin again, is a kind of courage people don't talk about enough. For many of us, the feeling of starting over comes from this idea that life is supposed to move in linear stages. First this happens, then that, then something else. But real life is rarely so tidy. Relationships fall apart, jobs end, plans shift. You outgrow versions of yourself you once clung to. Life interrupts your timing, and you're forced to relocate your footing. Sometimes the things you thought were permanent turn out to be temporary, and you're left standing in the aftermath wondering how to rebuild. And then there's the quiet guilt that comes with it. The voice in your head that says, "Why am I here again? Why do I keep messing up? Why do I keep losing what I worked so hard for?" But the truth is, you're not losing everything. Not really. Every time you start over, you're not actually back at zero. You're starting again with more knowledge, more insight, more self-awareness, more resilience, more clarity about what you want and what you don't. You're not repeating the past. You're refining it. It just doesn't feel like progress while you're in it. Think about this for a moment. Everything you've survived has given you something: a skill, a boundary, a lesson, a clearer sense of self, the ability to recognize what doesn't fit you anymore, the strength to walk away from things you once would have held on to out of fear. You didn't fail. You outgrew something, or something no longer aligned with you, or something ended because it had to, in order for you to begin again, not from scratch, but from truth. But I know, knowing that doesn't make the exhaustion disappear. Starting over still feels heavy. It still feels lonely. It still feels unfair sometimes. So how do you move forward when you're tired of new beginnings? You start by shifting how you see the beginning itself. Most people associate beginnings with excitement and possibility, but beginnings can also be painful. They involve uncertainty, vulnerability, and the loss of what was familiar, even if what was familiar wasn't good for you. A beginning is not a celebration. It is an opening, a door, a threshold, a quiet invitation to try again with more awareness than before. So instead of pressuring yourself to be excited about starting over, allow yourself to simply acknowledge it. I am here. I'm at a beginning again. And beginnings are uncomfortable, but they are also fertile. Something new can grow here. The next step is giving yourself permission to go slowly. When people feel like they've fallen behind, they often try to accelerate their recovery, rushing into decisions, forcing progress, pushing themselves past their limits because they're afraid of wasting time. But this urgency usually backfires. You don't heal by sprinting. You heal by pacing yourself in a way that doesn't require abandoning yourself all over again. Go slower this time. Be gentler this time. Take smaller steps. Not because you're incapable of big ones, but because small steps are steadier. They're sustainable. They help you stay connected to yourself instead of leaving yourself behind. Another important part of moving forward is letting go of the belief that your life has to look like anyone else's. Comparison is the enemy of renewal. When you measure your path against someone else's timeline, you rob your own path of meaning. You forget that your story is unfolding in a way that fits who you are, not who someone else is. Your journey is not late. Your detours are not failures. Your slow seasons are not mistakes. Everything is part of a rhythm you don't always get to see while you're living it. And finally, moving forward when you're tired of beginning again requires doing something most people avoid: honoring the person you were before the restart. A lot of people treat their past selves like something to discard. That version of me messed up. But the truth is, that version of you survived something. That version of you did their best with what they knew. That version of you brought you here, to a place where you have the insight to try again differently. So instead of resenting your past selves, thank them. Thank them for carrying you, even when they didn't know how. Thank them for pushing through the days you didn't think you could survive. Thank them for bringing you to this new starting point with more wisdom than before. Because this beginning, the one you're standing in right now, is not the same as the ones before it. You're not repeating. You're returning with more clarity. You're entering this chapter as someone who has walked through loss, confusion, frustration, and doubt, and still hasn't given up. That matters. That means something. That means you are still becoming. And the truth is, some people spend their entire lives never beginning again. Not because they're lucky, but because they're stuck. They never leave situations that drain them, never question their paths, never choose the discomfort of growth. They stay exactly where they are, even when it hurts. But you are brave enough to move, brave enough to change, brave enough to admit when something isn't working and try again. You are not someone who keeps failing. You are someone who keeps evolving. And the feeling of starting over? It won't last forever. There will come a time when things click into place, when momentum carries you instead of resistance, when you look around and realize you've built something sturdier than anything you had before. New beginnings feel like instability at first, but they are also the birthplace of alignment. The moment you step into a life that actually fits you. So if you feel like you're always starting over, maybe that's because you're finally becoming someone who refuses to settle for less than a life that feels honest, meaningful, and truly yours. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are turning toward the kind of life your past self always hoped you'd find. And every beginning has been leading you closer to it.